Okay, I think we will get started. So, thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Sarah Warsey. I am the marketing manager here at Sentia. Before we get started, just a friendly reminder that all attendees are automatically muted. If you do have any questions during the session, please share them in the chat window and they will be addressed at the end. So, very quickly, today's session centers around security, more specifically, the importance of maintaining cyber resilience within an organization. And we are delighted to have Veeam Software join us today to illustrate in a very unique story format how their modernized security solutions, coupled with Sentia's expertise in backup and recovery management, are helping businesses develop very robust cyber resiliency strategies to safeguard their data in the cloud. And as we know, Veeam is a proven industry leader in the backup and recovery arena, having been recognized by Gartner for the seventh time in 2023 as a Magic Quadrant leader. So we are very pleased to have them join us today. So the agenda for today is we are going to start off with a brief overview of Sentia and our partnership with Veeam, followed by a quick intro by our speakers, and then we'll get right into the content itself, showcasing how Sentia and Veeam are working together to transform a fictional city to help them stay ahead of impending cyber risks. We will then close the session with a call to action and the opportunity for some Q&A. So, very quickly, for those who may not be aware, Sentia is a Canadian-based IT solutions company established in 2007, and we have a very strong national and international presence. We are a global provider of high-value solutions, and we have a very strong, robust team of subject matter experts with over 18 years of experience on average. And we have been a trusted partner of Veeam for well over a decade now. And we come with a broad and deep expertise in the areas of Microsoft Cloud, network security, data protection, and virtualization. And we currently manage Veeam solutions for organizations across a variety of industries, locally and internationally. So with that said, I'd like to pass it over to Rick Byrne, who is the systems engineering lead at Veeam, to help kick off the presentation. Rick, over to you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Quickly, myself, Rick Byrne, based out of Edmonton, Alberta, been with Veeam for about 10 years. At one point in time, I was a backup administrator myself, very much a generalist and overworked and overburdened at times and everything that was happening in IT. And then I joined the pre-sale side of the house and came over, and I'm leading up the sales engineering group at Veeam Canada. But really, who you want to get to know today and who's the star of the show is Darren Guinan. So Darren, over to you.
I like how he puts it all the spotlight on me. Thank you. It's really nice to have everybody here today. Yeah, my name is Darren Guinan. I'm based out of Edmonton, Alberta. I am a Veeam systems engineer. My background is about 25 years now in security. I've worked for numerous security manufacturers like CrowdStrike, Palo Alto Networks, some VARs, resellers, that is. So I come at everything from a security background. So data protection really fit with me. It felt very compelling as I kept seeing ransomware hit at day after day after day. And all these companies that are getting hit by ransomware, they're not all small companies. Some are, but a lot of them are larger companies that have invested in technologies like tier one technologies, firewalls, endpoint protections, etc. And it was still happening. So prevention is still the right way to go, but it's not 100%. So I started thinking about this differently and said, what is the ultimate goal of making sure an environment? The ultimate goal is to make sure an environment can get back up and running, right? So if prevention can't do it 100% of the time, what about data protection? What if no matter how many times we get hit, we can get that data back up? We get the business back up. We don't want businesses to be down. You know what happens when a business is down too long. So I come at everything from that perspective, security. And there's always another way to do it. And I believe Veeam is like that ultimate insurance policy to always get your data back, always get your business back up and running.
Thanks, Darren. So like Sarah alluded to and told you, we're doing something a little bit different today, and it's either going to go really good or really bad. You can be the judge of that. So first of all, in the cyber landscape of ITville, so this is the saga of ITville in this city that we're going to be talking about. The stories are very real. The victories are actual and the challenges faced were truly daunting. But in the interest of preserving anonymity, and I can never get that word, and that's how I'm going to stick with it, and honoring the sacred code of the IT realm, the names have been obscured to protect the brilliant and incredibly modest, of course. These are their stories. Bum, bum. And I can't see anybody smiling, but maybe that brought out a smile. We'll see anyways. So any similarities to real world companies or actual cyber heroes are entirely deliberate, but names have been changed because, well, we like a bit of mystery. So let's get into and explain ITville. And this started off with Sentia bringing us in to an actual organization, ITville, that was facing significant challenges as a city built around aging technology and outdated systems. It's something you really see out there. Its primary struggle is to modernize and enhance the efficiency and security of its data management. The city grapples with frequent system breakdowns, data breaches, and inefficiencies that hinder their daily operations and quality of life for all their citizens. ITville's mission now is to seek assistance and resources to overhaul its infrastructure and implement new technologies, become more resilient, and capable of meeting the needs of its citizens and businesses. The city urgently needs transformation to shift from its current state of disarray to a model of digital efficiency. And this is where our trusted partner, Sentia, brought us in to help solve some of those business challenges. So let's get into the people that we were talking with at ITville in the city. So we have Sammy, and Sammy's current role is a security analyst. Sammy monitors and alerts for any potential security breaches in ITville. Then we have Rita, the backup administrator. Rita is responsible for ensuring that all the city data is backed up and can be quickly restored in case of a disaster, as we would hope. Then Penny, compliances, governance, regulatory compliances, is crucial in planning and documenting disaster recovery strategies and procedures. But the overall situation and the challenge these three folks face is that they have significant challenges due to their outdated systems and under-supported IT infrastructure. Their tools are not up to the task with dealing with the complexities of modern data management and protection. So as we met with ITville, this is what we found out. So Sammy's current challenges is the systems are outdated, slow to react, and often misses signs of more sophisticated cyber threats, which we see every day. With an aging infrastructure, Sammy needs to help keep up with the data volume, which is leading to delayed responses and potential security lapses. The limited IT staff magnifies the issue as there isn't enough skilled people to fine-tune the system or respond quickly, leaving the city vulnerable to attacks. Then Rita, her aging backup solution, she manages not only slow, but it's also incredibly unreliable, not what we want to see. This often results in incomplete or corrupt backups. We don't want to see that either, making effective data recovery a gamble rather than a guarantee. With a stretched thin IT crew, Rita finds performing regular backup, checks, and maintenance increasingly difficult. So that is risking significant data loss and operational downtime when recovery is most needed. Then we get into Penny. Unfortunately, her tools are outdated, cumbersome, and don't integrate well with other systems in ITville. This makes updating recovery plans a lengthy and error-prone process. The lack of integration and automation means that Penny spends excessive time manually managing these plans, which is inefficient and increases the likelihood of overlooking something. With the limited staff, her ability to test and redefine recovery strategies is severely hindered, leading to less effective disaster recovery. So the small IT crew is overwhelmed, as we see. This is what Sentia and ourselves seen as we were talking to these individuals, and they're unable to provide the necessary support and upgrades as needed. This leaves ITville exposed to potential cyber threats, data losses, and ineffective disaster recovery, compounding the risk of major crises that could cripple the city's operation. Their hope lies in a comprehensive upgrade to a more modern solution that can automate processes, integrate systems, and help them have a scalable protection against the myriad of threats facing the digital infrastructure today. Plus, like every company today, they have remote workers who require data protection. So the big thing is, as we were talking with this, do you think ITville is the only enterprises or organizations facing challenges like those that were just mentioned? I think not, but let's go to a quick poll to see what you believe. Sarah, bring up a poll. So what percentage of organizations were affected by a ransomware attack in 2023? Let's see what we get here. Was it 85%, 72%, or 93%? Let's wait for some results. It's looking good. Okay, here we go. So I'm happily surprised and shocked, but the majority of everybody, half at least, got it right. So once we talk about that, and let's go into that next slide, it's 85%. And that's a staggering number that 85% of organizations were hit with a ransomware attack in 2023. But do you know what I find most shocking? 45%. Now that number is the percent of production data that was affected by the cyber attack. Now, if we wind back the time machine for Rick, again, I used to run in IT operations and I was a backup administrator. Did I ever have the capability or built my solutions, if we go back 15 years ago, to be able to restore 45% of my data? No, I didn't. Most of my restores were 1% of my data, whether that was an individual email, some type of item, a virtual machine, or a physical host, but it didn't include 45% of my data. So just think of that staggering number now, where our solutions now need to predict and go after the fact that we may have to recover over 45% of our organizational data and get that as a quick recovery time objective as possible. But 93% of ransomware attacks target backups. And that's because backups are the thing that can get us going. So what we often got out of the last few years is a list of lessons learned from all those different challenges and dealing with multiple organizations, the same as ITIL brought to us, is that companies can recover and have recovered, but it's complicated. IT organizations have recovered from outages, but data loss and most likely even ransomware attacks. But most likely the process has not been easy. And why is that? It's expanding hybrid cloud workloads. It's growing infrastructure complexity. It's reduced resources that we have to be able to accomplish all this, and a time-consuming and manual process with that constant increase of cyber threats hitting us daily. So as we started walking through with ITville, what are the things we brought to the table for them and things they need to be aware of? Secure backup and fast recovery. And that's the ability, because you must own and control your data no matter where it resides. Secure backup and fast recovery are the heart of a well-executed data protection strategy. Okay, you need encryption, you need immutability. You need to be able to meet your recovery objectives with confidence, with instant recovery. You need to be able to go ahead and accelerate your move to the hybrid cloud when the choice you made today may not be the choice you need in the future. So how can you get your data from one cloud to another cloud, on premises to the cloud? The list goes on and on. But backup and recovery alone are not enough. Your data resiliency strategy needs to be more to keep pace with today's demand. So that's where it goes into proactive monitoring and analytics. And this is one thing we really brought up in the SAMI, was maintaining full visibility into proactive management and recovery success, quickly being able to mitigate potential issues before they become threats. Stay secure by knowing your protection status, because if you don't know you're secure, how can you recover from not knowing? Minimize downtime by eliminating the need for manual responses. So as we break that out, then it's proven recovery orchestration. And this was key to Penny. So with this, you have to make sure you're compliant and ready for disaster with orchestrated recovery. Things need to be automated. So automated testing, automated documentation, one-click recovery, because how can you come back from losing 45% of your production data if you don't have an orchestrated process? So this is where three core pillars of everything needs to be kept in mind. ITville needs to achieve that radical resiliency. They can only come from complete confidence in protection, response, and recovery built on the principles of data security, data recovery, and data freedom. With the Veeam data platform, we give that confidence you need to take the stand against cyber threats. So data security is keep your data secure with multi-layered security that gives you confidence your data is always protected. With data recovery, breadth and scalability enables you to perform mass recoverability reliably. Data freedom with support for hybrid and multi-cloud infrastructures. You can protect all your data anywhere and be able to restore it in any way. So this is where the Veeam data platform comes in, built off of the core capabilities using the principles, recovery orchestration, monitoring and analytics, and backup recovery, leveraging native APIs across a multitude of stacks from SaaS, hypervisors, hyperscalers, physical workloads, enterprise applications, platform as a service. The list goes on, giving you the ability to be ready to get smarter about your company's data resilience strategy and how it can help you get there from this Veeam data platform. Now, of course, what would this be without showing you some of those capabilities that Sentia and Veeam implemented for the city of ITville? Over to you, Darren.
Thanks, Rick. Sure. So, oops. Perfect. Yeah, great lead up here. I love this story of ITville, and I love how you have adapted this story to making it character, making it very personable. So I love it. So the goal was to, if we just back up a step, the goal here was to upgrade the outdated technology with a secure solution that is easy to deploy and manage. Get rid of that aged technology, complex, ensuring reliable recovery when needed. So our teams work together to move ITville to Veeam's data platform with full reporting and orchestration. So let's review a few of these things. And often people say, where do you start? Where did we get going for this? And Rita will love this. It's the 3-2-1 rule. If you're not familiar with the 3-2-1 rule, it's having 3 copies of your data. Production could be 1, 2 backups. Of those 2 backups, make sure they're on different media. So if you're storing it on site on one, maybe another one's in a cloud, or maybe you have 2 different storage arrays or 2 different data centers, you're storing a second copy there. One being off site. So that's a 3-2-1. So that's a good way to always ensure that your data is going to be recoverable. And I'm gonna talk more and augment that rule, provide a little bit more to it coming up here. So in starting with that, the very first thing we want options of where we can store our data. So in my environment here, I have some local storage on a local repository here, a little QNAP server. I've also added in Wasabi. If you're not familiar with Wasabi, it's an S3 compliant cloud. So a cloud offering does have Canadian data centers. So now I got on-prem, I have cloud, and Wasabi can be immutable, which we're going to talk about coming up in more detail. I've also added another repository on site, which is my QNAP, but a different part of the QNAP, which is immutable. Again, that immutable word. And you're going to see here that I've added a few different storage tiers for Azure. So what this all means, I have multiple options of where I can store my data. And I'm certainly not limited to this. I have many different options if I want to add even just cloud. There's so many cloud options out there between AWS, Google, IBM, Azure. Veeam has their own data vault now as well, where we can store your data and make sure it's complying with that 3-2-1 rule. There's lots of different options. So that's the first thing, is understand that. The second part is, how do we actually get at data? Like, how do we actually have that connection to see everything and make it easy? Well, we're far beyond this world of having agents nowadays. So we just connect up to your whatever virtualization you're using. In my example here, I am using vCenter, but I could have used Hyper-V. I could have used Nutanix, and Veeam is bringing out Proxmox later in the year. So we don't need an agent. We simply connect at that virtualization layer. So no agent base, it makes it very, very easy to get going, get up and running. The next part is simply, we need to do backups, right? We need to do backup jobs. We need to create jobs to back things up. Backup jobs are very simple. You click on you create a job, you decide what you're backing up, you name it, you choose the resources, you click next with repository, and you schedule it. It's very straightforward. I'm not going to go into detail because it's so straightforward. But the other part of this is we also can do backup copies. We can do a copy of the data. So my vSphere, my whole virtual environment, pretty important to me, probably pretty important to most environments, especially if you have a natural or man-made disaster occur. I send a copy of that to Wasabi every night. As soon as a new restore, I don't schedule it. As soon as a backup is created, it says, hey, I got a new backup, send a copy to Wasabi. I do the same for my domain controllers. I send another copy to Wasabi as well. And I'm even sending a copy of my domain controllers to my immutable storage on site. So I got probably I got more than the 3-2-1 rule when it comes to my domain controllers and my Wasabi or my vSphere. Another one that I find really interesting is people always forget this. It's Veeam backup and replication. So we have replication built right into our product. And you might be saying, well, what does that matter to me? Replicate, what's the value there? Well, the value is really simply put, is that when you're in the middle of a disaster and your environment is wiped out and you're having a big issue, this is my vSphere environment, and I'm going, okay, what do I need to even get started? It's not so simple to say, hey, restore your workloads. Well, what do you need to be able to restore your workloads? You're probably going to need some DNS. You're probably going to need your backup server. How do you get those up and running? And there is other ways to do this as well. Veeam has other ways built in to make this easier. But if you do a replication, I could just come in, and this replication could be to another data center, it could be within the data center, it could be to an Azure, Azure's version of VMware. You can come in and simply turn on the workload. It's already there. It actually replicates this data. If we look at what we have set up, I have my Veeam backup replication server every morning at 4 a.m. being replicated to my other data center. So all worst case scenario, if everything gets wiped out and I need to get back and running, all I have to do is turn on that workload. So making it very easy again to get back up and running. I do the same for my domain controller. Key services, I want to make sure that I make it as easy as possible to get back up running. And a lot of times we don't really understand what it's like to what we really need in what order until we have to go through some of this. So this is the first step is making sure we're complying to that 3-2-1 rule. We have multiple spots we can copy data. We also have pinned some off-site. We want to make it easy to recover. But Rita loved this, but she also needed some more convincing confidence on the restoring of data, how she can do that. So we actually have a backup job, and I've got a couple I've been running here, a backup job to actually test these backups at night. So at night, our virtual environments, for the most part, go pretty low on people using them. They have a lot more resources available. Why not leverage those resources to actually test your backups? So I always think it's funny when somebody says, oh, have you tested your backups this year or even once a month? I'm like, well, once a month that's a pretty long period of time. If something's wrong, to not know that your backups are good for 31 days. So we can actually run what we call a sure backup job. We can run this job and say at night, mount in a virtual environment, 100% virtualized, contained. Therefore, if there was potentially something malicious, it can't talk to the rest of your environment. Mount your backups in there. And what do you need to mount? The very first couple things you need. Well, if it's a domain joined server, you're probably going to need a Active Directory, domain controllers, DNS, DHCP. So we'll mount one of those to start with. Mount one of those, make sure it's up and running, then bring up one server at a time, one process time, test it all. You can do scripting, you can validate, you can even do an AV scan or even a Yara, if you're familiar with Yara, which I am going to talk about coming up. So we have lots of options for this. To make sure that we test and provide Rita that confidence that she knows that things can be recovered if need be. But what about the other side? What if we have to recover a workload? You'll see a lot of, if we go to a workload and say we want to recover, we can see a lot of different options of how to recover, because we talk about this a lot in the industry, is that everybody can say, hey, we could back things up. But really, and that's easy. What really gets more difficult is when you actually have to recover. And especially when, as I mentioned throughout this, services might be missing because you are in some kind of DR situation. So we want to make sure we provide as many options as possible to get you back up and running. We have the ability to mount a workload right from the actual host, get you up and running in about 2 minutes, limited IO, then push it over late at night. We can do this for disk. We can recover everything, entire VM, virtual disk, VM files. If it's application aware, meaning if it was a domain controller, we could click on it. We would see all the domain, the Active Directory information. In this instance, I'm looking at a SQL and it was application aware, so I can see all the SQL databases to do restored. But really what I wanted to bring and to mind here is that Rita, and Rita loved this, and Rick mentioned it, is that data freedom. You also notice that we have the ability to restore to the various clouds. Once we can have the ability to take this workload on-prem, we're in the middle of DR, and we can move this to AWS. We can move this to Azure. We can move this to Google. We can move it to another virtualization technology like Nutanix. We have the ability to do that. So this made Rita feel really good, but Sammy jumped in right away and was like, okay, I'm loving all this, but how are we maintaining the security environment? How do we know that the environment is going to be there should it get compromised, should bad guys try to get in there? And if you understand ransomware, especially more really specific to ransomware, is that right before they want to encrypt your data, they want to wipe out your backup infrastructure. They want to wipe out Veeam. They want to wipe out all of your backups because they don't want you to have the ability to not. They don't want you to have the ability to recover. They don't want you to have the ability to not have to pay them. If you have your backups, you don't have to pay them because you can always get your data back. And you're not, as Rick stats earlier in the presentation, you're not guaranteed, even if you did pay them, that you're going to get your data back, even if they get you the encryption code. Just because you have a way to decrypt data doesn't mean that it always comes back correctly. So we wanted to make sure that Sammy felt more comfortable about this. So we also wanted to review with him that we do have built right into the product a threat center. Now, notifications is going to be your number one way to get a lot of this data back to you, right? You're not going to wait to look at a threat center to see that you have an issue. Let me just move this up. You can see that I got some suspicious restore points, etc. You're going to have notifications. So if something happens, you want to have your backup administrator, depending on the severity, if it's a security incident, probably Sammy wants to get an email saying, we see something suspicious. So that is your number one way. But I do like having dashboards, especially dashboards that I consider more heat map-ish in the fact that they're yellow, red, green. When I come in and I look at SLA compliance and I say, wow, I'm doing really good. I got a couple of days with no backups, and then I have some failed backups. That's a pretty big indicator that I got to look at something in case I missed something somewhere else. So that was the first thing we wanted to bring up. The second is that you also might have seen this little bug in some of my backup jobs. Well, this little bug is the fact that we have machine learning built in line when we do backups. So when we actually do a backup, we're actually checking that backup and we can see that there is a suspicious malware extension. A malware extension was found in that backup. We're able to match it. It matches to the nuclear family. So it's probably something you want to go and investigate. Now, I think at this point, it's a good time to level set a little bit. We are not your endpoint protect solution. We are not a firewall. We aren't that. We aren't the prevention people who are going to we don't have that telemetry to say, hey, you know what, we know 100% that is there. So what we're really doing is we're augmenting. We are helping your security technologies by providing another set of hands, putting a hand up, say, hey, we see something occurring here within the backup jobs. So we have that ability to flag things on the machine learning side. I also don't have it configured on here, but we also have what's called 4-eyes authorization, where if somebody tries to delete a backup job, or delete the whole repository, and by somebody I mean like bad guys or ransomware automated process where a script just kicks off and tries to delete everything, it's actually going to say, hey, Darren has done this. Hey, Rick, you need to approve this. Second set of eyes. We want that second set of eyes to kick in to say, should this be done? And that breaks, while I love automation, that breaks the whole process of a malicious script from running. The other thing we've built into the product that Sammy loves, and you're going to see how bad my environment is here with this, we've actually added in a security and compliance analyzer that analyzes your backup infrastructure. I just redid this the other day, so I haven't gone through this yet and done some of the hardening. So this is best practices to make sure that your backup infrastructure is hardened, meaning there's less holes in it for the bad guys that get in there. That being RDP on, or firewall credentials, different protocols being on, for example. We go through that. The more you enable of these and make sure the best practice is being used, the stronger your environment is to repel the bad guys from getting in there. And that's really what we want to do. We want to make it as hard as possible for the bad guys to touch our environment. And then I wanted to make sure we also flag back on that immutable backups. If you're not familiar what immutable backups are, they are the ability to write once, read many. So it's basically a read-only copy of your data. So when I'm sending my data to Wasabi or my immutable storage on site, I'm marking that data saying nobody can delete this data for 30 days. So when those bad guys try to ransomware me and they say, hey, start deleting data, and they try to delete that data, they can never delete that data. So we always have a way to get the data back. And if I had a personal message for everybody on this call today, is please use the mutable backups. Please make sure that your data is read only. Rick, that's all I wanted to show at this point. I got a couple of things coming up, but I think at this point, this is where what I want to show, and making sure that Sammy and Reed are happy. And as you will note, I have not said Penny yet because we're going to come to Penny.
I was wondering if you were leaving out Penny and everything that was learned there. Awesome. Thank you very much, Darren. Great details. So as Darren talked about, as my slides kick back over, backup, we're not a security company as per play. We are playing inside of that from that layered defense that we all need when it comes to security. So backup is your best line of defense. And we take that notion of last line of defense even further and believe that backup is your only line of defense when it really hits, because we know that when your primary data and your backups are encrypted or destroyed during an attack, you can't recover. And that's what we had to make sure for ITville, leveraging the immutability. They are a heavy VMware shop today, but also as they're making changes and morphing, like Darren said, we have multiple different hypervisors. We have multiple different cloud data protection models that are also agentless. But on top of that, if you do need agents, we have them as well, whether that's for Windows, Linux, Mac, Solaris, AIX, the list goes on, to also be able to capture some of your more critical or even legacy applications as you migrate over, because you need to capture everything in your backups to be able to restore from them. So let's talk about some of the security aspects that Darren was talking about with Sammy. So we need to be vigilant, and that's detect and identify cyber threats during backup. Firstly, we want to bring malware detection closer to the attack with immediate detection during backup using our AI-powered built-in malware detection engine. This features allow your team to shift on top of that with proactive threat hunting. Now these backup pieces that Darren was showing can go into your SIM of choice. So what you're using for that security information event management, now that can be brought into Sammy's other tools, tying them together, giving him that visibility, plus our threat center in different pieces. Then you get that second opinion. Not only can we tie into his SIM of choice, but your cyber threat tools can tie back to us and let us know that maybe there is a workload that they detected that maybe we missed, but now it can tell us to tag it as that malicious activity. So now everything is captured. Then respond and recover faster from ransomware. And this really comes back to the RETA, and it's to take that stand. Let's know that the reinfection is a top concern of your IT for ITville and the cybersecurity team after attack. And this is where Darren was talking about YARA, which is just another simple term because it stands for yet another recursive acronym. Kind of silly when you think about it, but good. But it's simple in an open source mechanism that helps malware researchers identify and classify malware. Within the Veeam data platform, our YARO content analyzer uncovers and confirms and identifies the ransomware strains, and they do it very effectively and efficiently because of the way it looks at data. Additionally, the new AI anomaly visualizer makes your team aware of potential anomalous disk activity during backup. So we're actually showing it inside of a slider, especially for our continuous data protection model, where you can bring it back to make sure you are safe and secure, and you can restore having that safeguard in play. Lastly, but not least, and this really comes back to Penny herself, and that's secure and compliant protection for your data. We want to make sure that your organization has secure foundation and avoid the most common security mistakes when it comes to configuring backup with enhanced security and compliance analyzers and best practices. And that's what Darren was showing, as well as that 4 eyes principle that reinforces your best line of defense by preventing accidental deletion or malicious deletion, because that's the other thing. It can be an insider threat and not even a threat. It could be an accident, as simple as that. And when it comes to battling those cyber criminals, we all know the best way to defeat a hidden threat is to bring it into light. Shine that light on it. It's like my head when it glows, you know, it's shining that light on it. And perhaps one of the things that I'm most excited about is that threat center that Darren showed, because it pulls insights from the entire platform. And Sammy, Rita, and Penny were very excited about that because it brings them together also to have that same view into the organization, even though they are technically directly responsible individuals for specific things. But what they are directly responsible for as a group is to make sure that their data is resilient. So let's talk about after Sentia and Veeam with Darren went in and actually implemented these things for ITville, what changed? So the big thing is, as we introduce the new reinvented and transformed crew. So Sammy is now Sammy the Sentinel. He's that digital defense architect. With Sammy's cutting edge technology, Sammy has been reborn as a digital defense architect. He once overwhelmed systems is now a fortress of innovation, featuring real-time threat detection, automated responses. Sammy's new arsenal allows him to anticipate and neutralize threats before they can strike, keeping ITville not just safe, but step ahead of any potential digital dangers. Now, Rita, what happened with Rita? So Rita is now Rita the Restorer. So empowered by Veeam, Rita has transcended her role to become a resilient analyst. The legacy systems are a thing of the past for her. Now her backups are swift, seamless, and secure with features like data immutability and advanced verification processes. Rita ensures that ITville's data is not only backed up, but also perfectly preserved, ready for a flawless restore whenever they need it. And hopefully they don't need it, but hey, it's there. Then let's talk about Penny. Penny's now the planner. So she has evolved from struggling planner to a masterful resiliency officer. Her tools are now proactive as her strategies with automated testing and documentation that streamline that disaster recovery processes. Compliance is now a checkbox effortlessly ticked for Penny, and Penny's disaster recovery plans are not just plans, but assured promises of ITville's resilience. Now, do you think the city of ITville overcame some major challenge and transformed to meet new demands? I believe that they really did. Now, a quick poll question, and if you want to throw that up, Sarah. What aspect of your organization's cyber resiliency strategy do you find most challenging to implement? And this is just for everybody out there today. It's multi-choice, pick. There's no right or wrong answer, to be clear. All right, regular testing and drills. Oh, that's my response actually, but I'm actually clicking in with some people here. There we go. I'm liking these results. I assume everybody else can see these results as it's happening, but I'll quickly talk about them. So it seems like the top win. Oh, it's a kind of a tie right now. Is there going to be a tiebreaker? There was a tiebreaker. There was tiebreaker. So I'm seeing disaster recovery planning up there at number 1. And I agree with that because it's complex, but let's remove that hurdle. Continuous monitoring and threat protection, 29%. So I'm loving that's the two major hurdles people are kind of facing today and would like help resolving. And I think you're spot on, because I do believe that's a problem in our industry, that we need to keep things simple. We need to be able to implement these things quickly enough because we want to stay resilient, but mainly get our data back when the poop hits the fan. So this is the stressful part. Like I said, I hope that the ITville never had to face this challenge, but it's not if, it's when. And this is where the cyber city of ITville and their 3 heroes work to keep the city's data safe and resilient. So it started off with the alert. Sammy the Sentinel notices unusual patterns in the network traffic. Concerned, Sammy alerts the ITville crew, but needs confirmation on whether it's a real threat or a false alarm. He works to maintain vigilance as enhanced threat detection comes into play. Then the response comes into play. As the threat becomes evident, Rita springs into action as that restorer. She steps in. She has that critical task of ensuring no corrupted data is reintroduced during recovery. Very important. Rita uses innovative technologies to use her immutable backup targets and segregates clean data from potential compromised data. Then Penny, our planner, updates the recovery plans based on the latest events. She conducts a quick but thorough test to confirm the effectiveness of the plans, ensuring that every strategy is documented and compliant with the latest regulations. Now, of course, what would be the point of this if we didn't show you what Sammy, Rita, and Penny did to defeat this threat? So Darren, over to you. Let's see what happened.
Thanks, Rick. First off, Sammy's my boy. Sammy's awesome. Gotta keep going with good old Sammy here. So a threat came in. So what is the very first thing? Remember, we are not we can augment, we can help validate and provide some telemetry and understand what's happening. But Sammy's gonna have a full arsenal of solutions out there from a security prevention perspective. So I want to really focus on where we can fit in and help with that. I've already briefly showed it, but I would probably start right off the bat with the threat center and understanding if we see anything jumping out at us in this threat center, like that suspicious restore point, would be a really, especially if it was a full infected, not just suspicious. That would be a big one right there that I would be looking at. Second one would be always that I'm going to look at my malware detection side, and I'm going to see, hey, there is some suspicious stuff. Now, suspicious doesn't mean malicious until we validate. So we do have the ability to, we do need to investigate and look into these. So we can come in and say, we got something going on, let's say this bulk file deletion on Enterprise Manager. We can come in and we can do some investigation. Well, we'll pick on this one since I might have wiped that one, but we do have the ability to come in here and we have the ability to do a scan. So we can use scanning with the AV engine that you, whatever you're using in your environment, as long as it has the ability to run through a C prompt, you have an EXE, we can leverage it. But I'm going to be honest with you, I would never use that simply because we know scanning technologies are very intensive on machines. Processor hits 60 to 80%, and it will take a long time. And if you're trying to do this on multiple backups to understand what's actually happened, that can result in a lot of time. Time is against you when you're trying to figure out things. So I would probably leverage what we call Rick has mentioned more, is the YARA. YARA is yet another recursive acronym. It was created by VirusTotal before VirusTotal was bought by Google. And what it is the ability to search through your data in 8-bit blocks. So it's very efficient. You do have to know what you're looking for. So that's where really that augmentation when we work with your other security products comes in. So with Sammy gets something in a log from, doesn't matter what product he's getting, and he says, we believe we saw this and there will be some attribution there. Let's say, for example, it's Lockbit. We would want to go through and scan our backups, this workload, for Lockbit. Now it's going to search for all the indicators of Lockbit in 8-bit blocks. It's going to be very efficient, maybe 20% processor, and we're going to be able to go through that. So you can go in and just scan all the restores at a point. You can actually look for the last clean restore point. So if we have 40 days of data and 40 days of backups, and all of a sudden we scan, we might see that the first malicious or suspicious activity came in 22 days ago or 21 days ago. We can mark it, and then we can show you where that clean restore point is. Now, when I say restore point clean, I don't mean that you lose that 21 days of data there. You can come at this a number of different ways, right? You could actually say, I'm going to do a entire restore and pick the day that I want to do a restore, say, a couple days ago. But you can do what's called a staged restore, where we're going to bring it into an isolated data lab environment where we can now use the tools I went over, the AV scanner and the YARA searching, to actually scan through that data to understand what is there. So that's a huge one right there. And I think it's really important to understand, Rick alluded to this, is that part of the value what we're providing here, and I can't necessarily show you, is that we do have a full threat detection security API that we could integrate in with other technologies. And we're starting to see there's going to be more announcements about this in the next 6 months here. We have a lot of great partnerships are starting out. So what's really great about this is that if you think about EDR data, or endpoint detection response, XDR, these are these buzzwords out there nowadays, the XDR anyway, they're all they only keep telemetry for so long. For example, an EDR solution, if there's no detections in it, nothing malicious or suspicious, would only probably keep that data for 7 days on average. CrowdStrike, 7 days on average. If it is malicious, they keep it for 90 days. But what happens if we learn something new about a threat actor and we want to go back and look at telemetry for a month ago, or 3 months ago, or 6 months ago, or a year ago? EDR products don't have that telemetry, but you know who does? Most enterprise grade clients have a retention cycle that's longer than 30, 60, 90 days. A lot of my enterprise clients have data for up to a year. So it's really, important that we can bring that telemetry back in. If we find out something new about, Cozy Bear, the guys who attacked Microsoft, did the SolarWinds attack, who go low and slow, they take a long time to get in, we learn a new attribute. The EDR data will already be gone for that, for certain endpoints, but we can pull through that API, we can pull through the YAR that I'm going through here, and look at things and say, you know what, we did see this. It was basically half a year ago, we saw this data. Secondly, is that with the ability to do that sure backup and our virtual labs, we have the ability to actually restore the endpoint for any day in the retention period. So if it was 9 months ago, we can restore that endpoint in a virtual lab down to the bit level what it looked like 9 months ago, which, you know what, your forensics people are going to love. They would love that ability. They don't have that ability to do it. The last thing I want to touch upon is Penny, our resiliency officer. Penny loves what she said. We got reliable backups, we got proven restores, we got secure hardening of the environment, but she's actually wondering about a mass restore. And this is where we come into our orchestration. We have what's called, it's on our platform, that slide that Rick mentioned. This is our orchestrator side. This is just another UI sitting on top that uses all the components that are already there from your Veeam backup and replication. What is the value of this? Well, it takes that secure backup and testing to a whole nother level, but it also can fail over all your workloads as well. So you would create recovery plans, and you could say all my servers, certain groups of servers, and you could say where you're going to recover from. And if something happens, I got something going on in one data center, I need to move all my workloads to the other data center, or I need to recover to Azure. Azure is a recovery point. I can just click one button and I can mass restore, mass move all my workloads. We're in the middle of a DR scenario where something's happening, you're trying to investigate, you're also trying to get your services back up and running, and you also got the pressure of trying to, you have people asking you what's going on. This takes away two of those. You move your workloads over, everybody's up and running, and now you're investigating what happened in that main data center. So I think that's really, really important. And these testing that we can do, or this mass restores, we can actually automate these just like I was talking about Sure Backup for every night, and it produces report, which really plays into Penny being able to understand what's happening in her environment. She set the RPO, the RTO. Every day it comes up and runs these reports. These reports can be emailed and delivered, showing you how long it took to actually do the restore and test everything. RPO 24, but a 24-hour RPO down to 45 minutes. RTO 1 hour or 1 day, sorry, 2 minutes and 53 seconds. And we will go through all the steps of what we did, pinging the machines, script. And if you wanted to add your own scripts, you can do that here. So not only is we've got that secure environment, we've got some security for Sammy, but Penny's also good here is that she has ability to do mass restores, but she has the ability to now help with her compliance efforts, which is so important. That's what I got for you there, Rick. Back over to you.
Thank you, Darren. That was great. It's great to know that it could bounce back from that with the tools that were implemented, of course, as we were going through it. Now, what does that really boil down into is that ITville was fully transformed over. So as we kind of think about that, what does that mean? And what does Veeam and Sentia bring to the table for a conversation? And what do customers have to face today? And that's where this comes into play. The that way, this way, wrong way, right way, hard way, easy way. It should be none of them. It should be the way you need it to be to solve your business challenges. It's as simple as that. And on top of that, there's one thing we all want to make sure that doesn't happen is that we become a ransomware. We don't want to be a ransomware. We want to give you freedom of choice, whether that's within Veeam or the choice where you want to put your Veeam data. That could be on premises. That could be in our Veeam data cloud for M365 as an example, to offload that ability to have that software as a service, manage it. That could be the Veeam data platform and all these different pieces, and even partners like Sentia who could offer you services to store your data. So the list goes on and on and on. And when it comes down to it, for the full support of every single stage, this is where the Veeam Cyber Secure program comes into play. And I mean, there's always things where this comes into play, where there's certain spends that need to be on it and T's and C's, but nonetheless, it's pre-incident, during incident, and post-incident support should you be impacted and you can't do your recoveries. And with that, the main thing is Sentia and Veeam keep cities running together. And I'll pass it over to Sarah.
Thank you so much, Rick and Darren. That was wonderful. That was a great presentation, a great demo. Thank you so much. And yeah, just to wrap things up very quickly, we would love to continue the discussion in the form of a personalized workshop or a follow-on meeting to provide an even deeper dive into the areas that were touched upon today. And for more information or to set up a follow-up conversation, please contact myself, Sarah Worsey, or Chris West, our VP of Sales and Marketing, and we'd be happy to further the conversation. And please do keep an eye out. We will be doing a draw after the session for an Amazon gift card, and the winner will be announced after the session. So I have checked. I don't see any questions coming in yet, but if you do have anything that you'd like to ask Darren and Rick, please do so now before we wrap up. I'll just give that a couple minutes. And let's see here. That was a great demonstration.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. A very unique format as well, very creative. Thank you, Ken. Great session. Okay, so we'll wrap things up then. Again, thank you so much, Rick, Darren, and everybody who joined today. And a recording will be sent right afterwards for you to view afterwards. And look out for the winner for the Amazon gift card. Thank you so much again, and everybody have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great
Great.
day.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye-bye.
now.
Bye-bye.